This live satsang is presented by Radha Krishna Foundation in light of the ongoing lockdown and in support of Sri Lakshmi Mandir of West Palm Beach, Florida. Radha Krishna Dham of number 73 Village, Guyana. Dharma Mandir of London, United Kingdom. And Shiva Mandir Ashram of Leguan Island, Guyana.
वृंदावन बिहारी लाल की जय। सद्गुरु महाराज की जय। गुरुर् ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णु गुरुर्देव महेश्वर गुरुर्साक्षात् परं ब्रह्म तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः। सद्गुरु महाराज की जय। बंदव गुरु पद पद्म परागा। बंदव गुरु पद पद्म परागा। सुरुचि सुवास सरस अनुरागा। सुरुचि सुवास सरस अनुरागा। आमीय मूरमय चूरन चारु। आमीय मूरमय चूरन चारु। समन सकल भव रुज परिवारो। समन सकल भव रुज परिवारो। जय गुरुदेव जय जय गुरुदेव। 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 सद्गुरु महाराज की जय। Devotees of Bhagavan, again this morning, we're extremely appreciative of all of you joining us, especially the Pandits and teachers of Sanatana Dharma, but more especially the devotees of Bhagavan. Most of you know that we're in the season of, we call it Malmas, we call it Adhik Mas. The more appropriate name for this season because of the significance is Purushottam Mas, and that is because of the auspiciousness, the conduciveness of the season where bhakti, where worship, where sadhana, the benefits of all those multiply in multitudes, multiplied many, many times over. And so especially this morning that you've joined us, then your engagement in sadhana this morning in satsang this morning will bring you many, many benefits. And so we give prayers to different forms of God. We begin with prayers to Ganesh Bhagwan. Many of you know that our focus here is on Bhagwan Sri Radha Krishna. And we realize here in this satsang, like you do, Eko Deva Sarvabhuteshu Gudha Sarvavyapi Sarvabhutantaratmana. Shvetashar Upanishad, chapter 6, verse 11. Eko Deva, God is one. However, we as human beings, like with everything else, we look at Bhagavan, we look at existence, and we perceive our spirituality through different lenses. And so because of that, some of us are more appreciative. Some of us would appreciate a different form of God from the other person. Some of us would prefer to have Ganesh Bhagwan be our Ishtadeva, our favorite form of God. Some of us Hanumanji, some of us Durga Maya, some of us Radha Krishna, Bhagwan Shri Ram, etc. And so because of that, we try to give small prayers to a few forms of God, so that with whatever color of shades, of spectacles, of lenses you view God, that we're able to join you in prayer as well. And so we start with prayers to Bhagavan Ganesha. Vighaneshwaraya Varadaya Maheshwaraya Lambodaraya Sakalaya Jagadditaya Nagaya Nagasudiyagya Vibhushanaya Gauri Sutaya Gananatha Namo Namaste. The Gauri Mata. Sarvamangal Mangalye Shive Sarvartha Sadhike Sharanye Triyambake Gauri Narayani Namostude. Jai Ganesh, Jai Ganesh, Jai Ganesh Deva. Mata Jaki Parvati Pita Mahadeva. Jai Ganesh, Jai Ganesh, Jai Ganesh Deva. Mata Jaki Parvati Pita Mahadeva. Jai Ganesh, Jai Ganesh, Jai Ganesh Deva. Mata Jaki Parvati Pita Mahadeva. लधुवन को भोग लगे संत कर सेवा. लधुवन को भोग लगे, लधुवन को भोग लगे संत कर सेवा. लधुवन को भोग लगे संत कर सेवा. जय गणेश, जय गणेश, जय गणेश देवा. Jai Ganesh, Jai जाकी पार्वती पिता Those of you who see the world through the lens of brightness, of illumination, of wealth, we give praise to Mahalakshmi. Lakshmi karotu kalyanam Arogyam Sukha Sampada Mama Shatrum Vinashaya Deepajotir Namostude. It may not be possible for us to live a perfect life, but in aspects of life we can attain perfection as human beings. And so we ask Bhagavan Mahalakshmi, Siddhi Buddhi Prade Devi, that when it comes to the required knowledge for us to prosper and to be happy and to do that which is right, that which is dharmic, may she bless us, so that our Buddhi can be perfect. With that perfection, we'll make all the right choices and bring only bliss and happiness into our lives. Siddhi Buddhi Prade Devi Bhukti Mukti Pradayani Mantra Murti Sada Devi Mahalakshmi Namostude. To Bhagavan Shankar, Shambhavaya cha Mayo Bhavaya cha, he is the embodiment and the distributor of Shambhavaya cha Mayo Bhavaya cha, of peace and of happiness. Karacharana kritam va kayajam karmajam va sravananainajam va manusam va paradham vihitam vihitam Sarvameta Kshamasva Jaya Jaya Karunabhe Sri Mahadeva Shambho. Om Namah Shivaya. Shankar Bhagavan ki jai. Ramaya Ramabhadraya Ramachandaya Vedase Raghunathaya Nathaya Sitaya Pataye राम चरण सुखदाई भजो मन, राम चरण सुखदाई भजो मन राम चरण सुखदाई. To the feet of Bhagavan Shri Ram, Ram Charan Sukhadai, at the feet, at his charan, there's happiness there, there's peace of mind, there's contentment and fulfillment. There's a recipe for life at the feet of Bhagavan Shri Ram. How do we access those? Bhajaman Ram Charan Sukhadai. With the mind, chant His divine name. You know, in this auspicious month of Purushottam Maas, we know it to be dedicated to Shri Krishna. Many say it's dedicated to Bhagavan Vishnu as well, that's fine. But Purushottam is the name of Bhagavan. Bhagavan Shri Ram and Shri Krishna are both Purushottam. We know Bhagavan Shri Ram as Maryada Purushottam Ram. Maryada means the one who follows all the rules, sets an example for human beings. But Sri Krishna, he's Leela Purushottam. He came and didn't follow any rules, he made the rules. He did Leela. Bhagavan Shri Ram didn't do Leela as such, but he is Purushottam, Maryada Purushottam. To that Shri Ram, we supplicate at his divine feet and we ask for his blessings in this auspicious month of Purushottam Maas, the month of Shri Ram, of Sri Krishna. Ram charan sukhdayi bhajo man, Ram charan sukhdayi भजो मन राम चरण सुखदाई. राम चरण सुखदाई भजो मन, राम चरण सुखदाई भजो मन राम चरण सुखदाई. भजो मन राम चरण सुखदाई. जेहि चरणन की निकसी सुरसरी, जेहि चरणन की निकसी सुरसरी, शंकर जटा समाई. जेहि चरणन की निकसी सुरसरी, शंकर जटा समाई. जेहि चरणन निकसी सुरसरी, Shankar Jata Samai, that it is from the feet of Bhagavan Shri Ram that the Ganga flowed. Bhagavan Shankar worried about the destruction it will cause upon earth. Shankar Jata Samai, he took it upon his Jata, upon his hair. Jata Shankari, Naam Padyo hai, that he figured out. He ensured that the Ganga was not causing destruction but be a blessing. Tribhuvan, Brahma, Vishnu, Mahesh, they came together and thought of a way of accepting Ganga from the feet of Bhagavan, but ensure that it doesn't cause hurt, but brings blessing. Jehi charanan ki nikasi sursari, Shankar jata samai. Jata Shankari नाम पर्यो है, जता शंकरी नाम पर्यो है त्रिभुवन तारण आए। ओ भजो मन भजो मन भजो मन राम चरण सुखदाई। राम चरण सुखदाई भज मन राम चरण सुखदाई। राम चरण सुखदाई भज मन राम चरण सुखदाई। राम चरण सुखदाई भज मन राम चरण सुखदाई। भज मन राम चरण सुखदाई भज मन राम चरण सुखदाई। राम चरण सुखदाई भज मन राम चरण सुखदाई। राम चरण सुखदाई भज मन राम चरण सुखदाई। भज मन राम चरण सुखदाई। भजो मन राम चरण सुखदाई। भजो मन राम चरण सुखदाई। श्री रामचंद्र भगवान की जय। वृंदावन बिहारी लाल की जय। श्री परमात्मने नमः। We chant the words of verse 9 of chapter 7 of Bhagavad Gita. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Punyo Gandha Prithvivyam Cha Tejaschasmi Vibhavaso. Punyo Gandha Prithvivyam Cha Tejaschasmi Vibhavaso. Jivanam sarvabhuteshu tapaschasmi tapasvishu. Tapaschasmi tapasvishu. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Kandayalal ki jai. We'll be reading briefly from verse 9 of chapter 7 of Bhagavad Gita. The words here, Punyo Gandha Pritibhyam Cha. Bhagavan here says that I am the pure fragrance of the earth. Tejas Chasmi Vibhavasau. He says here that I am the brilliance in fire, that I am the Jivanam Sarva Bhuteshu, Tapaschasmi Tapasvishu, that I am the life force in all beings, and Tapaschasmi, Tapasvishu means that I am the penance in all ascetics. So I know it is a little bit distracting, but if you can stay with us, we'll try to go through this verse. There are 4 points here in this verse. And the first one, here Bhagavan is saying that the verse is saying essentially that among all beings, in everything, that there is a life principle in everything. And that life principle that we know is me. We will explain what this life principle means. So let's take the first part of the verse, the point number 1. Punyo Gandha Pritibhyam, that I am the pure fragrance of the earth. Fragrance means the sweet smell. So fragrance is experienced in so many different ways for us as human beings. Fragrance in different flowers, they're a different smell. And fragrance of the earth, for those of you who remember from a few weeks ago, we said that, sound, shabd comes from space, according to Sanatan philosophy, that touch comes from air, or air is a source of touch, and that fire gives form, and that ras, taste, comes from water. We discussed this 2-3 weeks ago. And the one that is relevant here is gandha. Gandha means smell. Gandha of the earth, the smell of the earth, is what we're trying to explain here today, because Bhagavan says, I am the smell of the earth. So we know that fragrance is manifested in so many different ways, so many different things. Whether it's a flower, whether it's the wood, the bark of a tree, whatever it is, whatever fragrance it is, the one thing that is common is that it has its source in earth, in Prithvi, because smell comes from Prithvi, from earth. When there's a rainfall, for example, in any area where there's land, people from India would experience this often when there's a monsoon, or in any country, even in places that are asphalted, when it rains, you have that smell of tar because the water brings out a smell from the concrete. You smell the road, you call it the oil, there's smoke or something. In a similar way, when it rains on the earth, a special smell comes out because that's the smell of the earth. What this also tells us, practically, is that in everything that we see and perceive, that Bhagavan is present there. Bhagavan says, I'm the smell of the earth, and so when you get that smell of the earth, it means that that's the presence of God. This tells us that the whole world is Bhagavan's temple. In the same way that we see God in the sun and the moon, Surya and Chandra, etc., in the same way in earth, the smell represents Bhagavan. And so for that reason, we as human beings will not be able to find peace if, for example, we only focus on God in the temple. Because God is projected everywhere, in the smell of the earth, etc. So if we think and focus that God is only in the temple, and we forget that God is outside the temple, then we would not be able to enjoy, any peace in our lives, because we would not be motivated to exercise our spirituality to the highest extent when we're outside the temple. There's a beautiful verse that tells us, Atma tvam girijamati sahachara prana shariram griham pujate vishayo prabhogarachana Nidra samadrishtati Sanchala padayo pradakshana vidhi Stotani sarvagiro Yadayata karma karomi tattadakhilam Shambho tava radhanam. This is from the Shiv Manas Stotra. It tells us here, Atma tvam girijamati sahachara, briefly, that, O Lord, that you are my soul, pujate vishayo prabho garachana nidra samadhishtati, that my interactions with the world is your worship. Why is this slok saying this? Pujate vishayo prabho garachana. If God is not outside the temple and He's only in the temple, then why is Bhagavan Shankar, Adi Shankaracharya, saying that my interactions with the world should be my worship to God? Why? Because Bhagavan is manifested everywhere in anything. Sanchara padayo pradakshina vidhi stotrani saravagido. That my walking is pradakshina, parikrama, when we circumambulate the Govardhan mountain, or we circumambulate the temple, or even the murti in the temple. That is pradakshina, and that pradakshina, this verse is saying that when we walk, that should be our circumambulation of God, because God is present everywhere. And so we should realize when we're walking that this is our worship. Stotrani saravagida, our speech should be our stotra that we chant to Bhagavan. It's not any different, because Bhagavan is present. Yarayata karma karomi tattara kilam shambho tavaradhanam. That yarayata karma, karomita, all the work that we do, whatever we do, that everything, dear Lord, is your aradhan. Everything is worship to you. So, what does that mean? It means that we'd have to do namaskar inside and outside the temple. I may be speaking a little bit fast to go through, but whatever little I've prepared to present to you today, because we've lost so much time. But the verse is telling us that we should do namaskar inside the temple. When we go into the temple, we do namaskar. We should also do namaskar outside the temple. That is why we tell people namaste. When we put our hands together, namaha, the root verb in that word, means to bow. Te means to you. So when we see someone and we say namaste, what are we saying to them? We're saying to them that the divinity within me recognizes and prostrates to the divinity within you. Ishvara sarva bhutanam hrideshu arjun tishtati. Bhagavan says, I sit in the region of the heart in every living being. Chapter 18, verse 66. Mamaivancho jiva loke jiva bhuta sanatana. 15:7 Bhagavad Gita. Mamaivancho jiva loke. Ancha, a fragmental part of me, is what causes you to be alive, causes us as human beings. Ishvara ansa jiva vinashi, Ramayana. Ishvara ansa. That a divine spark of mind is in everyone. And so when we say namaste, that is what we're doing. We're recognizing that divinity within everything, not only human beings. There's a beautiful chaupai that helps us to understand this. This is how it goes. Hari vyapak sarvatra samana. Hari vyapak sarvatra samana. Prem te pragat hoi main jana. Prem te pragat hoi main jana. Shri Ram Jai Ram Jai Jai Rama. 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 Shri Ram Jai Ram Jai Jai Ram. Bhagavan Shankar himself is saying here to Brahmaji and all the devatas, Hari Vyapak Sarvatra Samana. Why should we do namaskar outside the temple as well? Because Bhagavan resides everywhere equally. There's no greater presence of Bhagavan inside the temple, and he is less available outside. Not according to our scriptures. That is something that we have fabricated in our heads. We understand in the mandir there is the murti of Bhagavan, we have done pran pratishtha, and so Bhagavan sits within that murti, but he also says, and that is for the purposes of Kankan. Bhagavan says in Ramayana, Bhagavan Shankar's Hari Vyapak, Sarvatra Samana means equally. Sarvatra Samana, that I am present equally everywhere. And this means outside of the temple. So this is why Adi Shankaracharya in this Shiv Manas Stotra is saying that we should also do namaskar outside the temple. You know, sometimes we have a difference with someone and we want to have a quarrel, or even beyond that, and we tell them, let's go outside. Let's take the fight outside. Why? Because Bhagavan is not outside. We can't fight in the temple. We can't say certain words in the temple. We can't be in a particular mood in the temple. Because Bhagavan is available here. And outside, let's take it outside. No, not according to the scriptures. Hari Vyapaka Sarvatra Samana. He is equally present everywhere. And how can he be seen? How can he be revealed? Premate pragata hoi mai jana. Only through love. So we have to look within to find peace because of all the disturbances and the rumblings that is happening in the world. If we want to find peace, we look within. But when we do namaskar to the world outside, that's when we find peace within. So let's go over quickly to the second point of the verse. Tejas chasmi vibhavasau. Tejas chasmi vibhavasau. Here Bhagavan says that I am the brilliance in fire. Essentially, God is saying that I am the core value in fire, the core principle, the core property of fire, that which causes fire to be identified as a particular thing as fire. Because of this, because of that property that enables fire to be identified as fire, the color, the light and the heat, those principles in fire, that is me. Bhagavan is saying. That brings us to the third point, Jivanam Sarva Bhuteshu. Jivanam Sarva Bhuteshu means that within everything, Sarva Bhuteshu means everything. That which remains, let's imagine anything that exists, especially a living thing, that which remains in a substance from the beginning to the end. And without this thing, without that thing that we're thinking in our head, that particular life, that particular being cannot maintain its identity. Like as in fire, if it doesn't have heat, it's not fire. If water doesn't wet, then it's not water. So that which stays in that commodity or that being all the time, forever, during its entire existence, God is saying, that is me. That which helps it to maintain its dharma. Let's take an example. Let's take electricity as an example. If we have a heater, for those of you, and I'm sorry to say we have beautiful weather here in Florida, but for those of you who live in a cold state, you use a heater during the winter. And so the heater gives heat, of course, but there's a core principle. There's a life principle within that heater that causes it to give heat. And what is that principle? What is that property? It's electricity. A light bulb gives light, but its core principle, its core property is what? Again, it's electricity. But it gives light, not heat. That life, that core value in a musician, for example, the voice of a musician, the life of a musician, a vocalist especially, is his voice. And so Bhagavan is saying, that is me. The very quality in creation, The sound in a musical instrument, whether it's a sitar, harmonium, tabla, whatever it is, the sound in that musical instrument, Bhagavan is saying, that is me. I am the bij. I am the seed, the root cause, the core principle of that which you enjoy, of every living being or thing. We'll talk about bij in the next verse. Bijang mam sarva bhutanam viddhi partha sanatanam. This is the next verse coming up, next satsang. But if you were to look at this word bij, each tree has its own seed, right? The seed is the essence of the tree. That little seed that you see, it has treeness inside. And a particular tree, not just any tree. You plant a seed and you hope that it will become a mango tree. No, you have to plant a mango tree. So that core value in the seed that makes it become a particular tree, Bhagavan is saying, that is me. That makes it into a given tree. We cannot plant any seed. Let's take, for example, we want a beautiful mango tree and we go plant something else. And there's a doha that explains this, because as human beings, this is what we do sometimes. We do one thing and expect a different result. This Kabir Das doha helps us to understand. अब करी क्यों पछताए बोया बेर बबूल का आम कहाते खाए बोलो राम बोलो राम बोलो राम बोलो राम राधे श्याम राधे श्याम राधे श्याम राधे श्याम करता था सो क्यों किया अब क्यों अब करी क्यों पछताए. So what this verse is saying, that sometimes boya bed babul ka aam kahate khai. We plant a seed, and this can be not only literally the seed of our existence. We embark upon a task, we plant a seed. But we plant a seed of thorns, babul, and we're expecting aam kahate khai. Aam means mangoes, sweet mangoes. But bhaiya, if you plant a seed of thorns, how would you expect to reap sweet mangoes? That is not how life works. In no way, not materially, not spiritually. You plant a seed of, let's say, acacia, right? This is a plant that has, long, very sharp thorns. And it also has a very unpleasant flavor, if you were to taste. And also, to protect the plant, this is a tree that a lot of ants live on. So it is unwise to plant acacia tree, a tree of babul, of thorns, and expect to reap sweet mangoes. If we do that, not only would we not reap sweet mangoes, but we'll become victims of the sharp thorns and the extremely unpleasant smell. And we'll be bitten by the ants. So we have to look before we leap. When we have a plan, examine it properly before we move forward. Don't plant a tree of thorns and expect to reap sweet mangoes. This is what Bhagavan is saying here. It is because of me that that seed gets to maintain its identity. So, for example, from a practical standpoint, if you're a carpenter and we're good at carpentry, this is what we like to do. And we're making a fair enough living. And all of a sudden we see our neighbor is prospering, he's making so much money. You try to examine what he's doing, and he has a grocery store, maybe a supermarket somewhere. And you decide, you know what? Even though carpentry has been my thing, I've imagined it, I've learned it because I love it so much, but my neighbor is making more money in a grocery store, so you quit carpentry and you open a grocery store. What are the results? First of all, you're not sticking to your swadharma. Your swadharma means that which is close to you, that which you know best, that which you feel, that which feels good inside, that this is what is for you. That's why science studies have shown, and parents follow it today. They tell the children, look, every parent would love for their child to be a doctor or an engineer or an attorney or something. But parents who know better, they don't do that to their children anymore. They tell them, go to school, do what you like most, but go to the highest level of education. And we don't force them anymore. Many parents do that now because they try to help the child to follow his swadharma, what sits best in them. And so Bhagavan is saying, what sits best in you, what you feel best about, that is me. That is the little voice in you. See, because when a seed is planted, it sprouts within a given time, right? With all the appropriate conditions. Because the law of germination upholds. And because of the law of germination, the tree grows and it becomes huge and it starts giving shade and it starts giving fruits. And it looks beautiful, it's decorative as well, to the roadside or to your garden. And these are the results of following your swadharma, your core value, your core principles, because if you left carpentry and you go to do the other thing, this will be like planting one seed and getting another tree. But the law of germination, because of God's law, it upholds, and so that's why we get a tree that has so many different colors of flowers, it's such great smell, etc., etc. Because it's stuck to its swadharma. So this law cannot be violated. If it does, then the seed loses its value. It loses the essence for which it exists. And when we try to do somebody else's duty, we lose the value for which we exist. When we ignore our purpose for life, we lose the value for which we exist. Because we exist for a reason as well, and we have to recognize that as human beings. And we not only have to recognize it, we have to pursue it diligently. The greatest question, and let us all keep this in mind, my dear friends. The greatest question, the best question, the most beneficial question that anybody can ask themselves is that, what is my purpose? And that will bring a world of answers to anybody. Ask yourself, what is your purpose? Sit quietly by yourself, maybe close your eyes, or however you want to do this, and ask it sincerely, not in words. Ask yourself, what is my purpose? Why are you here? Why are we here as human beings? This is another topic. We'll talk about it another time. But how about if we ask ourselves that question in the meantime? So we'll have some answers before we address this topic in the future. Each one of us has a purpose. The seed's purpose is to become that particular tree. And it does. The purpose of the water is to wet. The purpose of the fire is to burn and give light. We have a purpose too. We're the only one among 8,400,000 species who don't stick to our purpose, more times than not. And because of that, we just roam aimlessly in life. I remember reading a quote a long time ago. It was a little boy in a newspaper in Guyana. It says, someone is trying to describe life, and it said, life is a long agonizing wait for death to come. How much more negative can you be? How much more out of touch can a person be to think that that is what life is? But we'll discuss that another time. So we should not be aiming for anything that shows up. We should have a purpose. We should answer to our purpose, and then we'll have clarity in our lives. So here, if we don't answer to, like we said, we just go through life aimlessly, and we're not recognizing the awareness of God within us. Because whatever we do, that core purpose, that Bhagavan, that seed is within us. The only thing that differs, some people are billionaires and some people are extremely smart and some people are not. Everyone's different. That's how the world goes around. It doesn't mean that God has blessed us less. That blessing, that presence of Bhagavan is within all of us. But in the outer world, it reflects differently, like a 5-watt bulb. If you have a 5-watt bulb, it gives a little bit of light, right? But for it to give light, it has to have electricity coming to it. That electricity, like in the heater, is the same. Like a bulb with 100 watts. It's so much brighter. Or if you go to a football stadium or a cricket stadium, those lights, they can brighten up a whole village. It is the same electricity. However, the equipment that utilizes the electricity is different. This is our equipment. And if we enhance it properly, then we'll be able to do what? To be bright like the lights in the stadium and not like a 5-watt bulb. It's just the equipment. So we have to ask ourselves, what is our purpose? And that answer will help us to make this equipment stronger, give it greater capacity so that we can access that which is within us, that electricity which is within us, which is God. So let's take that example next. In our next pravachan, we'll talk a little bit more about the seed and how that applies to our lives. But what we should do is ensure, according to Bhagavad Gita, there's a beautiful verse in Bhagavad Gita. Sri Krishna Sharanam Mama. 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 Ye atha mam prapadyante tantastaiva bhajamyaham mama vartamanu vartante manushya partha sarvasha. Sri Krishna Sharanam Mama. 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 So Bhagavan here says, this is why, like we discuss about the seed and everything else, and in our personal lives, when we ask ourselves what our purpose is, depending on how well we prepare that equipment, whether it's a 5-watt bulb or a 100-watt or a stadium light, this is how we'll access the brightness that is available. This is how this brightness will be manifested. This is how much access we'll have to God, with God, because this verse here in verse 11, chapter 4 is telling us, Etamam prapadyante tantastaiva vajamyaham. Bhagavan Sri Krishna here says that in whatever way people worship me, in whatever way, to whatever extent people surrender to me, I reciprocate, I return that love to them accordingly. So if your worship is 5%, that is what you'll get in your life. If your worship is 100%, like a 100-watt bulb, you'll get that in exchange from Bhagavan. Or if it's like the stadium light, you'll experience tremendous peace and bliss in your life. So Bhagavan says that, look, to whatever extent, to whatever percentage you are able to access my divinity, my blessings in the form of all the things you do in life, this has nothing to do with me. Etamam prapadyante. It has to do with to what extent you surrender to me. That is to the extent of which I reciprocate. I return the favor, essentially. So this is not about Bhagavan. Oh, God has not blessed me. Look at my neighbor. He has so much. This has nothing to do with that. This is about us preparing the equipment, the vessel. Because Sri Krishna says that everyone, people follow my path, but it depends on how they follow it. And Krishna says that I return the favor accordingly. Anybody who looks upon God as the goal, as Sri Krishna as the goal, he takes care of them according to this verse. Bhagavan Sri Krishna says that I take care of them in the same way that a mother takes care of her child. So this we should know and remember as Hindus. Because Sri Krishna uses the word here, bhajami. Bhajami means to serve. What does serve mean? Bhagavan serving us or serving Bhagavan? A beautiful doha helps us to understand that. Sheshasyeho paratanam, Sheshasyeho paratanam, Bhavam Vayam Ho Rama, Bhavam Rino Vayam. Ekaisyo parakarasya, Ekaisyo parakarasya, Prananda Sumite, Siyavar Ramchandra Ji ki jai, Sharanam. These are the words of Bhagavan Sri Ram here saying that he's saying to Hanumanji, after Hanumanji has accomplished all his ekaikasyo pakarasya, that, oh Hanumanji, that to release me, this is God is saying, to release me from the debt of the service that you have performed for me, the only way I can do that is to offer my life to you. Sri Ram is saying to Hanumanji because of his service. For all those devotional services that you have done for me, or that was done by you, that I shall remain eternally indebted. I shall remain eternally indebted to you. So Bhagavan is saying here, when you serve him, he remains eternally indebted to you. That to whatever extent you serve him, he will return that and he'll remain indebted to you. So Sri Ram is saying this. So let us please realize, my dear brothers and sisters, that for us to see, most of us want blessing, But we have to always realize that blessings are not asked for. Blessings are earned. We have to realize that every moment of our lives. All of us have access to blessings. All of us have access to God. The same level, the same percentage of access that is available to the great yogis or the saints. We all have access, but the vessel is not properly prepared. Accessibility is available, but a vessel is ill prepared. Prepare the vessel and we'll have 100% access to God. Bhagavan here himself is saying that I owe my life to you, Hanumanji. So let's discuss the last point in this verse here. The last point here is tapaschasmi tapasvishu. That here Bhagavan is saying that I am the specialty of the austerity in yogis. Tapaschasmi tapasvishu. This is the last point before we close. That austerity that yogis are so known for, that is me in the ascetics and in the sadhus. Because the sadhus and the ascetics, the yogis, they consciously deny themselves of bodily pleasures, right? We know that. They have given up everything, so they become yogis. They become people who now have everything while they have nothing materially. That determination to become a yogi, Bhagavan is saying that is me. Because they perform so much of austerities that is aimed at self-purification. Their austerities are aimed toward one thing only, and that is self-purification. Sri Krishna here is saying that that is the force, that force within the yogis that helps them to do that, that force behind their capacity to do penance, that is me. In a tapasvi. A tapaswin or a tapaswini, right? Means a male or a female person who does tapasya. That power to do so is something that is already locked up within them and locked up within all of us. We have the power. It's like there's a vault for us to go in there and have tremendous wealth. And the key is available, but we're looking at the wrong place for the key. The actions that we have to perform to have access to that key are not the ones that are recommended, and so we don't have the key, but the wealth is there. So how do we get there as human beings? Why? Because this power in the yogis, Bhagavan is saying that same power is within every one of us. The answer to that question is what? Relentless effort. That is how we get there. That is how we accomplish anything we want to accomplish. Because tapas is conserving the energy that will otherwise be wasted and misdirected. So we direct that towards a goal that you want to achieve. The yogis want to achieve self-realization, so they use all that energy and direct it towards one goal. Self-realization, and they accomplish it. So we have to have that level of discipline. Discipline like, great athletes or great musicians. Sportsmen, great sportsmen, they practice, it's a grueling practice. They resist all kinds of things, food and other kinds of distractions. They give up lower desires and they focus on higher purposes. If you want to become an athlete, you don't do everything that the average guy does and you accomplish it. They do brutal exercises to accomplish any task. I remember reading a story of how Usain Bolt used to practice in the hot sun. And he runs in the field until he stops halfway and he throws up and he can't go anymore, and the coach tells him, get up. and go. He listened to the coach. He followed. He wants to win the 100-meter again in the Olympics. And so he gives up the luxury of stretching out on a sofa, and he keeps practicing. Some people will say it is insane to undergo things like that. The training routine, the top level, athletes undergo, that they put themselves through day after day, week after week. That it's not normal, but it's the price you pay if you want to achieve the best, if you want to achieve your goal. A typical athlete, would practice for 5-6 hours a day, 6 days a week. A musician will do the same thing. All these playback singers that we enjoy so much, you think they wake up one morning and they sing in a movie? No, they do riyaz. 6-8 hours a day if you talk to them, regardless of their age, to maintain what they have or to get to that level of perfection. Sportsmen do the same thing. Let's use a couple of sports examples before we close today. Everyone knows that there's a nickname for an ex-Indian cricketer whose name is Rahul Dravid. They call him the Wall. Why is he a wall? Because nobody can get him out. He's fixed at the wicket. How did that happen? He says that he wakes up at 6 o'clock in the morning and he starts his exercise routine. And his routine includes meditation for 30 minutes every day. And this helps him. His meditation and his exercise helps him to keep a cool head. It gives him the mental balance, the mental prowess. It gives him the ability to move in an agile way. It gives him the ability to focus, especially when situations get really tough. On game days, when they're sledging, to keep his calm. And he gives some advice as well. He says exercising gets tougher as you grow, as you advance in age. But he says if you want to stay in the game, that is what it takes. In anything you want to do, if you want to stay in the game, if you want to accomplish your goal, you cannot quit. Quitters get nothing. So Rahul Dravid was called a wall because of this mentality. Another one is who in the world doesn't know Sachin Tendulkar? This gentleman wielded magic with his bat for so many years, almost 25 years. His whole career, 200 and more, or 200 test matches, 450, I think, one-day internationals, etc. And he's the highest scorer of all time in the world, in the field of cricket, of all time. And he did this consistently for almost 25 years. One day his coach was asked, when Sachin was retiring, how was he able to do this for so long? A sportsman cannot maintain, a fit body and that concentration for so long, more than 20 years. The coach replied to the reporter that, look, Sachin has an exercise routine and he sticks to it, whether he's at home or whether he's abroad, whether he's strong or he's unwell, whether he's in a game on game days or he's not playing, whether he's touring overseas or he's in India, whatever it is, he has an exercise routine that he sticks to every single day and he doesn't change. And this exercise routine also includes pranayama and meditation. And this is how he is able to accomplish all that he accomplished. The level of commitment, the deliberate deprivation of other things, of certain amenities. He's a very rich person, he can be living another life. But these are the discipline, the tapasya that he performed every single day is what afforded him to accomplish his goal. So this is the approach we have to have as human beings, whether in our material life or spiritual life. if we do this in our material life, we'll accomplish anything we want in the material world. And if we do this in our spiritual life, we'll attain God for sure, this level of discipline. Unfortunately, most of us as human beings, we're somewhere in between. We don't do that level of tapasya. So we're going to close here for today. But I want to leave with you a beautiful story. This is a similar story, but it's a true story. It's a story that started a few years ago, and it unfolds even today as we speak, the same story. So this story is a motivation for anyone, especially young people who have a goal in mind. And this is about a young man in India from a village called Bahori. This village is about, let's say, an hour drive or so from Varanasi. You know Benares? Kashi. He was just about 8 years old, and he loved cricket. So he'd wake up as soon as the sun is up that he can see, and he'll go outside on days that he's off from school, and he'll play cricket until he can't see anymore, until it gets dark. That's all he wants to do. So he found that he was, and his father observed that he's very good at this game also, and so he wanted to do something more with his ability. So he asked his father, in order for him to fulfill his dreams, he asked his father to take him to Mumbai. You know Mumbai, Bombay? So that he can have the right opportunity to become a professional cricketer. Also because Sachin Tendulkar was his hero. And also that Mumbai is commonly referred to as the city of dreams, especially in cricket, or also in cricket. And so he went there, his father took him, and he stayed at a relative's house. Very young. This young man's name was, or is, his young man's name is Yashasvi. Yashasvi Jaiswal. A very popular story this in the cricket world. So they were staying at a relative's house because, his father didn't have the means to have their own place or anything like that in Mumbai, because Yashasvi wants to stay there and pursue his cricketing career. So he's staying with a relative and he realizes, look, life is getting difficult here, and so I'd have to work. I need money to buy things, etc. And so he tries to look for a job so that he can have some money, he can go to school, and he can also play cricket. So he left his uncle's home. He got a job in a shop, a dairy shop, and he moved in there, in this dairy shop. There, in order to have a few rupees in his hand so that he can pursue his cricketing career, he started working very, very long hours. And in the afternoon, he'll practice his cricket. And he'll practice at his famous ground for motivation. He'll practice at his famous ground called Azad Maidan. For those of you who follow cricket in Mumbai, you'll know that's a very, very popular ground. Azad Maidan. It's a hub for aspiring cricketers. And so he's getting into a routine, but as soon as he's getting comfortable, working long hours, practicing his cricket, he was asked by the owner of the shop, he lost his job. He was fired from the job. He can't live there anymore because they said that, the cricketing thing is getting in his way of doing the amount of work that he's outside of his job, around the house and things like that. So he was thrown out. So he begged the owner, he said, look, can you please leave me until tomorrow morning, that I have to find somewhere to live, I have nowhere to go. And so he was able to stay there until the next morning. The next morning he went to the cricket ground, he found a coach there, and he told the coach a story, and the coach provided him his house to stay in. And so he started living there now, and he stayed there for about 3 months. Before this coach, remember, this is a little boy. just 9, 10 years old. The coach said, okay, it's time for you to leave. You have to go now. I can't keep you forever. So he was thrown out of there, but his mind is stuck on cricket. He goes to the Maidan. He wants to go there every day. So the next day, he met another cricket coach, and he told him his story of his dreams, and he has nowhere to live and no money, and his parents can't afford anything, and he's willing to do anything to continue pursuing his dreams, because he didn't want to give up. That was not in his vocabulary, to give up. So the coach said, okay, there's a place in the cricket ground where you can live, but before I agree for you to live there, I have to put you through a test. And the test is that you said you're very good at cricket, so I'll put you in a cricket match. If you score a lot of runs and you take wickets, I know that you're a useful player, I'll let you stay there. So this is exactly what Yashasvi wanted, because he already sized up the place in the cricket ground where he can stay and not have any trouble with anyone. So you end, and of course in cricket terms you call it, if you shine. So he did well that day in the cricket match, and the coach said, okay, you can move in there and live. You can go and live in the cricket ground. However, this place that was available for him to live was not a palace. This was actually just a tarpaulin tent, just a tent with nothing, a tarp on top and at the sides. And so when he moved in there, he realized how difficult it was to live there. Why? Because there was no electricity in that tent, there was no water, there was no bathrooms, there was no food for him to eat. On top of that, if anybody has gone to India in the summer, you'll know what the heat is like in the summer in India. It's sweltering. And so Yashasvi says that in the summertime he'll roast under the tent because this is his house. And then the monsoon in India, torrential rain. And so when it rains, his tent will be flooded. When it's hot, he'll be roasting. He has no food, no water, no bathroom, no electricity, but he kept his mind on his goal. He wanted to play cricket. At that time, he knew that his parents cannot afford much. So he was also unwilling to tell his family anything about his daily struggles. Because if he did, then his father will come back to Mumbai and take him home back into the village, and it will be the end of all his dreams. Because in the village, you don't get the opportunity. So what became very normal for Yashasvi is that he was now sleeping hungry every day under this tent. This was his new normal, his new reality. But the perspective that this young man had is something amazing. He was asked, why are you doing this? Look at the conditions you're living under. You're so young, you have your parents, you should go back home. Why are you staying here? He says, the reason why I'm staying here is because I have a great chance to further my cricketing career. But you can do that from earlier. He says, no, I have a great chance because I live so close to the cricket ground. What perspective! He didn't see anything as a struggle. He only saw the best in the situation, which is, I live in the cricket ground, so I can just walk out, go on the pitch and play as much cricket as I want, whenever I want. This is perspective. But he had to eat as well, and so to make ends meet, he came up with an idea, and he started making pani puri. You know pani puri? Popular thing, you can get it at an Indian restaurant. So Yashasvi, being a child, now he's about 10, 11 years old, he's making pani puri, and he goes by the roadside and he sells it every day. So he's a street vendor, all by himself. He said on game days, he'll play with all the opposing team and his team, and he was clearly the best in both teams. And during the day, he'll make 100 runs. Routinely, he makes 100 because he's so good. And in the evening, he goes back to his stand and he sells pani puri. And when he's there, the very wealthy Mumbaikars, the people who live in Mumbai, and they're going out to dinner. This is including many of the people he played cricket with during the day. When they're going to the fancy restaurants in India to eat in Mumbai, they're passing him. The same guy who made 100 during the day is now by the street corner. He's selling pani puri. Why? Because he wants to make a few rupees to stay in the game. And he's selling by the roadside. He did say that sometimes I'll feel so embarrassed because all my friends from the cricket ground are going with their parents and everything to this fancy restaurant and I'm selling pani puri. However, he never lost focus on why he's there. The purpose for which he's there in Mumbai, he never lost focus. Such a young man. Was going through daily struggles, never gave up. So in December of 2013, by now Yashasvi was 12 years old. And he was practicing in the nets in the cricket ground, and he was spotted by a cricket coach. The name of the coach is Jwala Singh. And the coach saw that he's batting very well and he's playing very well, and against senior cricketers, an older team. The coach saw him and said, okay, he has recognized his potential, and he decided also to give him a place in his house to live so that he can closely examine his real, potential and abilities as a cricketer. So now Yashasvi is staying with this new coach, and under this coach's, under Singh's tutelage, Yashasvi was now able to participate in an inter-school cricket tournament in Mumbai. While he finally has an opportunity and he's participating in something that is competitive, by now his father realized Yashasvi has been there long enough. I don't know how he's surviving. I should now go and bring him home back. So his father left where he's living and he went to Mumbai to bring his son back to the village. It was on that day that Yashasvi, in the same competition, he scored a 300, 300 runs in one cricket match, and he took 13 wickets. His father saw that, and the coach spoke to his father that, look how much talent he has, give him another chance, leave him here. So the father's decision was, he altered his decision and he left him there. He's gone on to score 62 centuries as a young man. Further, he was selected for Mumbai's under-16. At just 12, 13 years old, he's now playing for Mumbai. One of his dreams as an under-16 player. And then while he's playing that, he got chosen at such a tender age. He's also chosen for Mumbai's, for India's under-19 squad. Now he's representing India in the under-19 game, the under-19 team. While that is happening, he also made his debut in the 50-over match. Those of you who know cricket, that's a popular one. The 50-over format. This was in September 2019. This is recently. He's now representing Mumbai as a child in the senior cricket club. Not only did he manage to make that team, but in one of his games he scored 203 runs and 154 deliveries. Those of you who follow cricket would understand that. That's an amazing task. That double century made him the youngest double centurion in history of the 50-over game. He made history in the 50-over game. That's not even his league. That's out of his league. But then came another moment of reckoning. This boy who came from Mumbai with nothing but a big dream, he was selected in India's squad. The under-19 squad for the year 2020. That is this year. So Yashasvi has now been chosen to represent India in the under-19. But it didn't finish there. Before he left for this much anticipated series, in a series that he also got the man of the series. But before he left to go on that series in South Africa, something happened. You know what happened? There's an IPL auction. For those of you who know what IPL is, Indian Premier League, the auction took place at the end of 2019, on December 19th. Yashasvi, as a young man, he was listed for $27,000, 27,000 US dollars. If any team, even though he's so young, if any team pays 27,000 US dollars, then they will get him to play for their team for the season. So he was listed at $27,000. Know what happened? Yashasvi was bought in the auction for 12 times that amount. His bid went up to a staggering 327,000 US dollars for this 18-year-old young man that was homeless, that went through all kinds of deprivations, that starved and slept in the rain, and had a little pani puri tent. This is a real story of rags to riches. But what is the real point of this story? But before I finish, when he played the under-19 representing India, he was also the man of the series. American children will understand that as being MVP. This is a real World Series, not like in America where, they call it World Series. This is a real World Series. There are teams from all over the world is playing. Yashasvi was man of the series. He scored about 600 runs or something like that. And even though it's very rare for a cricketer his age, Yashasvi, this homeless young man, went from homeless to sharing a cricket dressing room with all the greatest stars in cricket and his royal teammates. Rajasthan Royals, he's sharing the same space with all those teammates. The story is so popular that CNN interviewed him. And when they asked him, how did you accomplish all of that? Such a young man without your parents, didn't get food to eat. His answer to CNN was, all you have to do is believe in yourself. That's the key. He said, believe in yourself and work hard. This is the advice of a genius to anybody who wants to accomplish anything. Not a young man who lives under a tent. Today as we speak, the IPL is going on and Yashasvi is a part of the IPL. I think it started 2 days ago or something. So I wanted to tell you the story because this is a story of what tapasya is. Yashasvi has deprived himself like the yogis. They deprived themselves of anything, that's how they became yogis. Yashasvi, and now he's living his name, Yash means fame. He's so famous internationally now. He's now living his dreams because of all the deprivations that he put himself through, because he kept his eyes like Arjun in Mahabharata. When the Guru says to Arjun, he asks all the Pandavas and everybody else, what do you see? And they all gave all kinds of answers. Arjun said, I see the eye of the fish. This is what we have to do as human beings if you want to accomplish anything. Keep your eye on the goal. Keep your eye, like Arjun said, I can see the eye of the fish, and that way he cannot miss his target. In the same way, Yashasvi, he kept his eyes on the goal that I want to play cricket for India, for Mumbai, and I don't care about anything else. Don't care meaning, relevant to our topic. He didn't give much to all the things he was deprived of. He stuck to his game plan. And today, not only is he already a great cricketer, but he's representing India. This is tapasya. This is what Bhagavan says. If you want to accomplish anything, the ability to accomplish it lives already within you. All you have to do is manifest it. Yashasvi manifested that Bhagavan that lives within him, the power to do anything. He had no doubts as to what he can accomplish, and of course, he did. So in the field of spirituality, we can become yogis, we can become saints, we can attain God. In the material world, with that same approach, we can attain anything. Vrindavan Bihari Lal Ki Jai. We'll just do one verse of our closing bhajan. I know it's past our time, but we lost a lot of time today, and so we apologize for that. But let's do a small bhajan, and then we shall close. This bhajan tells us, मन का राम नाम की महिमा गाए रे, महिमा गाए रे. भाई मन का राम नाम की महिमा. Manka means from the mind, right? But that's one manka. Both words are the same thing. They sound like it, but the other manka here means, manka means, when you have a rosary, a mala, and you're chanting with the mala, and you're skipping from one beat to the other, that is manka. So from the mind, use an imaginary mala, manka, Rama Nama ki, and chant the name of Sri Ram. Mahima gaye re, the greatness and the glories of Bhagavan Sri Ram. Saso ki dori mein ghume. Saso ki dori. Saso means breath, so saso ki dori means use the breath as a string of that mala. Saso ki dori mein ghomi, dheer bandaye re, and chant with sincerity and love. If you do so, if you do tapasya in that way, using the breath, chanting the name of God with sincerity, if this is a tapasya, you too, we too, will be able to attain Bhagavan. Shall we group our voices together? भाई मन का राम नाम की महिमा गाए रे, महिमा गाए रे, महिमा गाए रे, महिमा गाए रे. सांसों की डोरी में घूमे सांसों की, सांसों की डोरी में घूमे धीर बंधाए रे. महिमा गाए रे, महिमा गाए रे, महिमा गाए रे, महिमा गाए रे. भाई मन का राम नाम की महिमा गाए रे, महिमा गाए रे. दिन जपते चिन चिन का माला, दिन जपते चिन चिन का माला. कभी अंधेरा कभी उजाला, दिन जपते चिन चिन का माला. कभी अंधेरा कभी उजाला. राम कृपा से बुझा दिया, राम कृपा से, राम कृपा से बुझा दिया, फिर से जल जाए रे. महिमा गाए रे, महिमा गाए रे, महिमा गाए रे, महिमा गाए रे. भाई मन का राम नाम की महिमा गाए रे, महिमा गाए रे, महिमा गाए रे, महिमा गाए रे. सांसों की डोरी में घूमे सांसों की, सांसों की डोरी में घूमे धीर बंधाए रे. महिमा गाए रे, महिमा गाए रे, महिमा गाए रे, महिमा गाए रे. Ramchandra Bhagavan ki jai. Before we do our closing prayers, I want to thank all of you again. This is certainly a most auspicious time for us to do bhakti, for us to do devotion to Purushottam Bhagavan, to Sri Ram, to Sri Krishna, and to everyone who has lost a relative. We pray that their souls rest in peace. To everyone who's celebrating a birthday or any special moment, remember it is Purushottam Mass. I had planned on touching on that topic today. I didn't anticipate the interruption that we'll have. But next week we'll talk a little bit on Purushottam Mass, on this Mal Mass, on this extra month that we have. Many questions are being asked. But next week I will not address anything else or do any sermon before we talk about Purushottam Mass. So please tune in next week to have a better understanding as to why this extra month, why we cannot do certain things, and why certain things are very important, why certain things are even better to do now and some things are prohibited. So we'll explain all of that next week. So great to have all of you, and may you enjoy the season of Purushottam Mass in your bhakti, and the blessings of Sri Krishna, blessings of Sri Ram. And until I see all of you again, until we're together again, may Bhagavan keep you and your families safe. Bar 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 mang ho, harsh deh Shri Rang, par sarojayan pavani, bhakti sada satsang, bhakti sada satsang. Siya Pati Ramchandra ki jai. Sharanam Prabhu Umapati Mahadev ki jai. Pavan Sutta Hanuman ki jai. Siyavar Ramchandra ki jai. Sharanam Prabhu Sab Santan ki jai. Jai Sitaram. Jai Jai Shri Radhe. Jai Jai Shri Radhe. Jai Jai Shri Radhe. Maryada Purushottam, Leela Purushottam Bhagavan ki jai.
Radha Krishna Foundation presents an international event. Friday, November 13th, 2020. Deepavali, Return of Light. This live satsang is presented by Radha Krishna Foundation in light of the ongoing lockdown and in support of Sri Lakshmi Mandir of West Palm Beach, Florida. Radha Krishna Dham of number 73 Village, Guyana. Dharma Mandir of London, United Kingdom. Shiva Mandir Ashram of Legwan Island, Guyana.